Miss Dinkins.
Hi, Miss Bowman.
I enjoyed your class so much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed looking at your lesson plans, and I just had a good time in your class. I got a chance to kind of see what you're going through. Now, earlier you told me that we wanted to focus on the ninth graders, and kind of just tell me how you feel about this class that I just observed.
Okay. Well, this class is the most active class that I have. There's a marked difference between the freshmen, the younger students, and the older students. They're a lot more active. They need a lot more guidance and direction from the teacher. And I think that they need to have more instructions given to them when they're in the classroom, and focus on rules and regulations in the classroom.
Well, I noticed when the bell rang that everyone didn't come to attention. They kind of did their own thing, were a little slow to get to their seats. I also noticed that they were talking over each other, and when you were talking, they still had their own conversations going. Also noticed that quite a few students weren't prepared for class because they didn't have pencil or paper or any of those things. And it seemed a little chaotic when you switched activities. I noticed that when you transitioned to your lecture, some of the kids put their heads down and seemed to zone out a little bit. And they didn't quite participate. And I noticed you had to raise your voice a little bit. Can you tell me about having to yell during class? How often does that happen?
Well, the ninth graders like to talk to each other, and they're more interested in social activities and things of that nature, and more of what's going on around them with their neighbors than they are in the class itself and the activities. Even sometimes when it is an interesting subject, they just get excited, or they just come in with a little bit less maturity than the older students. They like to talk because they feel the need to express every thought that comes into their head. So when you're talking, and if you make a comment that strikes a nerve with them, then they start talking and go off on their own tangent, and they want to express their ideas, and that gets them off track, and that can get the teacher off track too.
Well, I have a few suggestions.
Yes.
Okay, how about if we try writing your classroom rules on the board and just let them know that these are the norms of the class, and when they get a little out of hand, kind of point back to those norms. What do you think about that?
I think that would be a wonderful idea to institute some type of policy that will enforce those rules by calling their attention back to those rules, and not having to yell at them or to get upset with them, but to just calmly redirect their attention to the rules. So I think having them in a place where they're quite noticeable would help.
Okay. I also noticed that when it was time for your activity, they had to get up and get their own papers, and that caused a little disruption as well. What do you think you could do to minimize some of that movement?
Well, the older kids, you can just tell them what you want them to do, and they can get up and go and do it, because things are not so exciting to them. But the ninth graders think moving around seems to be very exciting. They find a lot of things to get into as they're moving. So if I had those materials maybe already out, and they didn't have to get up to go get anything, or if they had everything at their disposal without having to move around, then they could do that with a minimum amount of activity. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, I noticed that your instruction was teacher-led. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
I try to get them thinking and actively involved in the beginning by doing an activity, and then that gives them something to anchor themselves on when we go to lecture. But during lecture, they zone out. They don't want to listen. Some of them end up wanting to put their heads down, and some of them want to talk to their neighbors, and then they lose interest. So maybe finding a way that they could participate, or having breaks within the lecture where the students are allowed to stop and think and write or do something will help keep them motivated.
Okay. How many days per week do you allow students to work in groups?
Maybe 2 or 3 days a week.
Well, we might want to look at increasing that so it could be more student-centered. Now, when you say your ninth graders act up in class, could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, like I said, the ninth graders tend to be more excited and more interested in socializing and activities of that nature, and they're more expressive in what they think and what they feel, and they don't like to be embarrassed, and they want to be in good favor with their friends. So,
well, let me make sure I understand you. I hear you saying that ninth graders don't like to be embarrassed. So what do you mean by that?
They don't like to give wrong answers. Because the other students, they feel, will laugh at them or think that they don't know something. They don't like for the teacher to call attention to them because they feel like everyone else is looking and directing their attention at them, and that they're on the spot. So that's one of the major things that is a problem with ninth graders.
Now, I saw your lesson plans, and I see that you're a hard-working teacher, and I just appreciate you so much, Ms. Dinkins. I just want to share with you a couple of things.
Yes.
In closing. Like I said, I think we should put those norms on the board. I think we might want to implement a few more activities that are student-led, and maybe include some interesting hands-on activities to keep those kids involved. And maybe that'll cut down on some of the disruptions. What do you think?
Yes, I think that the students need a lot more direction from the teacher. Express exactly what you want to be done. If you want them to do a certain thing, then you have to explicitly say, do this and nothing else. Give them one thing at a time. And I think if the activities and the materials are set up from the beginning, that will minimize a lot, because they would understand. Giving them the rules and the guidelines before they begin an activity will cut down on a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of talking, because they would actually know what to do. Because sometimes you do want them to discuss and talk, but you want it to be about the lesson and not about their socializing.
Absolutely. Well, I suggest that we try a few of the things that I highlighted, and then I'm going to be in touch with you, and I want you to just let me know how they worked out for you.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Dinkins. I appreciate you.
Thank you.